Welcome to the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, the show that puts the spotlight on the incredible women who fuel the world of motorsports. From drivers to crew members, engineers to fans, and everyone in between, we're here to celebrate the trailblazers, dreamers, and doers shaping the sport we love. Each episode, we share inspiring stories of females of all ages from every corner of the motorsports universe, past, present, and future. It's a journey through the seasons of life filled with heartfelt moments, laughter, and a whole lot of horsepower. So whether you're a lifelong fan, a racer yourself, or simply curious about the extraordinary women behind the wheel, settle in, relax, and enjoy a fun and uplifting ride with us. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, connecting and celebrating women in motorsports, one story at a time. Let's hit the track. Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. And Eva Gregory is my guest today. I'm so excited to have her on the show and hear what all she's doing as far as work and motorsports. So, Eva, welcome to the show. And would you first share a little bit about yourself so we can get to know you better?
Absolutely. Well, Melinda, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to share some podcasting space here. So as Melinda said, my name is Eva Gregory, and I am in motorsport, and it's been so much fun. For kind of high level who I am and what I do, my main job is managing marketing partnerships for Hagerty. And those that are not familiar, Hagerty is an automotive insurance agency that specializes in classic and collector cars. So we're really an organization that cares all about cars and car people. And I am a car enthusiast myself. I have a 1972 Volkswagen Carmen Ghia and love working on it by myself with my own hands, and just really have accidentally completely wrapped my life around motorsports and automotive. And I'm so happy to be here.
You know, it just takes one little thing to ignite that spark, doesn't it? And then it's
Absolutely.
like, wow, I didn't realize I was going to love this so much. And then
Right?
look at you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. So how did you get interested in the beginning? Were you a little girl going to the racetrack? Your dad worked on cars? How did you get interested?
Yeah, completely by accident. So when I was starting college, as most people, I was financially independent and just needed some bills paid. And so I was working a couple different jobs at the time and came across an organization called Atlanta Motorsports Park. For those that aren't familiar, I'm based out of Georgia, and Atlanta Motorsports Park is a club membership-based facility. So they have a go-karting track, and then they have a main car course as well. And I really got involved, as I said, by accident. I just needed the job. My only prior experience was retail. So I literally started as a cashier, just checking people out for their go-karting sessions. And it quickly evolved into every aspect of my life being consumed by it. I really wanted to get trained in every position at the company. So I ended up getting cross trained between pit stewarding, corner marshaling. I worked some with the mechanics, and it was a really, really great opportunity to learn the industry at that ground level, which I'm so grateful for now, having a very acute understanding of the sport. And then through my time there, I ended up evolving in a role and working with the company to create a position that hadn't existed, which was managing their memberships. And so their members didn't really have a point of contact. And through that, I was able to get in touch with some amazing folks and share their stories and get them out on track for, kind of noticing if they hadn't visited in a while and making sure that that community aspect was really being nurtured. And then through my job and time there, I really got ingrained with the hobby enthusiast side of the sport, especially in the classic air quote Porsche sector. And so I ended up literally from friendships to mentors and my day job. It really just took over every inch of my life. And then I ended up evolving in my career through a couple other companies and roles to where I am now.
That's, it's a process, isn't it? It's step by step by step, and you just never know where it's going to take you.
Absolutely. And I think that's it, is I was willing to just ask questions and be curious. And through that, I am now in this world that I truly never, ever saw myself in. I thought once upon a time that I was going to be a lawyer. And then when I was in college, I thought that I was going to teach English as a second language internationally. So very different than what I'm doing now. But I'm so grateful for how fulfilling my career has ended up being.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And really, both of those careers would have been exceptional. But
Sure.
I mean, isn't the job you have now kind of fun?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's actually so heartbreaking when I hear friends and family members talk about their jobs, and really it's just a means to an end. And for many people it is, but no,
Hmm.
I'm so grateful and so blessed to have had the opportunities and honestly the determination to be curious and stay in it. As we know, this being the Women's Motorsport Network, it's a male dominated industry. So having enough grit to stay in it has been really rewarding.
Yeah, for sure. And as we also know, there's more and more of us showing up,
Absolutely.
which is,
Absolutely.
to me, that's one of the best parts about being involved is not only the women I've met, but as I started this in 2017, and gosh, I look back and I think, wow, has it been that long? But the number of women that are showing up, and maybe they were there and I just didn't know, but I don't think so. I think there's just more and more and more women seeing other women, and we're exposing that to a large, I don't have just women follow. I have all kinds of,
Certainly. Yeah.
yeah, it's honestly about 50-50.
Yeah.
And
That's great.
so the men see, oh, these women are pretty smart. They are pretty good at these jobs and all these things. And so we see more and more women becoming not just involved, but taking leadership roles. And
Absolutely.
to me, I just warms my heart. And I just think, wow, I had, I don't know, I think it was God sent that this is what I'm doing, because
Sure.
I get up every day and look at my book and be like, who do I talk to today?
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
just so fun for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what do you love most about your job? Or maybe tell us a little bit more about, kind of what it is that you do.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, my day job is marketing partnerships for Hagerty. And so, through that, it's really all encompassing. I manage all of the different types of partnership that includes automotive museums, ambassador influencers, car clubs, as well as motorsport. So, it's been really cool getting to kind of branch out what from the niche motorsport and regional aspect of being in Georgia to now a national broader automotive scale. And my day to day is impossible to describe because it really does change regularly. But my role entails everything from contract negotiation to partnership management to deliverable fulfillment. So it comes with a lot of entertaining conversations. There's certainly a lot of personalities and nuance that I have to navigate, but really it has just broadened my horizon and continued to pique my interest and curiosity in the depth and history that is in the motorsport and industry that we love.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, we need to get more and more companies interested in partnering in all of those
Sure.
areas because, first of all, and I'm sure you know this, about 80% of the buying power in the home is the woman.
Absolutely.
She makes the decisions, and it might even be more than that now. That was, a year or two ago, about a year ago when I researched all that. And so and even when it comes to buying a car, she picks the color. She probably picks what kind. Is it an SUV or a gas guzzler, or is it an economy car? And
Certainly.
so, we not only need to find companies that maybe market to women,
Right.
but also that are not your typical motor or car automotive type companies.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah, I think Hagerty does a really good job of that in a
Mhm.
lot of ways, from supporting and sponsoring women's focused initiatives like organizations such as Shift Up Now, where we
Yeah.
sponsor Sabre Cook directly. We also have our women's ERG, which is an internal opportunity to ensure that there's resources available for us. And we're also looking at that women do have the buying power, and there's a new generation of not just youth coming in, but more diverse people in this space now. And when we look at motorsports specifically, and we see the drive to survive of impact and people getting more interested and curious about what it is that we love.
Yeah.
Hagerty is looking at that. Other companies are looking at that and saying, how can we meet you where you are? And how can we be relevant to make sure that we're equipped and you're equipped to now fuel this newfound passion?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I sometimes wonder, when I watch TV, which I watch a lot of TV, but it's food commercials, it's drug commercials, which are ridiculously over the top. It's constant. And thank goodness it's no more political commercials. But you know, why aren't some of the companies that I see advertising on TV though trying to get your consumers, let's say Kraft Foods, which I can't say that Kraft does, but let's say Clairol or Revlon,
Sure.
or any of those big makeup companies,
Sure.
things like that. Motorsports fans are the most loyal type of fans you're going to find. And so if I hear that Hagerty is sponsoring Sabre Cook, then I'm going to look into that company for my needs because I want to make sure they keep sponsoring her.
Absolutely. And, there's some interesting data surrounding that as well, that female athletes have more trust in their followers than male athletes do, because they tend to at least be perceived as taking more time to research and work with companies that they believe in. And so I think that speaks volumes when you do look at sponsors who are supporting women in their respective spaces, and how impactful that can be for now the company from a marketing and buying perspective, to the athlete getting more sponsorship from other companies and so on. So I definitely think it's important. And you had mentioned something a few statements back about how maybe you felt like women weren't there a couple years ago and more are here. And I think that programs like this and supporting and sponsoring initiatives that are women focused is increasing that visibility. So more women are able to say, you know what, I can see myself in that position. I can explore that because someone has started paving the way. And it also showcases opportunity and holds companies accountable to support more women, because if there's one woman in a field of 40 men, then there's now the door is now open, and more companies are going to pique their kind of interest in it and see what opportunities exist and what benefits exist.
True. And it only takes really one company to step out and be like, we're gonna support, this gal in motorsports.
Sure.
And then other companies, their competitors, maybe not their competitors, are looking at them and like, what do they know that I don't know?
Absolutely.
And so it attracts attention, and that's what we have to do. We have to attract attention to our sport. And for me, more so the women in our sport. I pick up a magazine, or I get one in the mail that's about motorsports, and I love reading the stories, but there's rarely a story about a woman.
Sure.
And that's disappointing. That's why I used to do an online magazine, but I've just kind of focusing more on the podcast, because I can talk to you and I can hear your story in your words and then share it in your words.
Sure.
Which, and the way people listen and do things nowadays, they don't sit down and read like we used to. They listen to Audible, they listen to podcasts. And so if I want to get the word out, I'm trying to go with the media that gets the word out.
Well, and I think it makes sense because you're meeting people where they are, right? Which is, I think, the topic of some of this conversation here. And I would like to add one note as well, because coming from now the corporate side and seeing how these things are assessed and evaluated, your mention of there not necessarily being stories about women, it's an interesting line, because when we do look at this space as automotive as a whole, it is historically a more male-dominated interest and hobby. And so, of course, we have to appeal to the people that have been here. We have to appeal to the folks that support our bread and butter products, whatever they may be. And then we also have to start integrating more to really emphasize that inclusion of diversity, of women, of age, of whatever the category may be. But I think that that's something that I have been guilty of. It's very easy to say, I don't see a woman there. but we do have to consider people don't like change.
Yes.
And for some folks that have been in the industry for decades and are used to seeing men, we have to assess as a business, how can we do this in a way that is going to maintain our consumers, and then also bring in a new audience, no matter if that's women or just younger generations, et cetera.
Well, NASCAR's done the same thing. So
Sure.
they, in my opinion, they, for a while, kind of forgot about all of us that were fans, older fans. You know, I'm 69 years old, so I'm the generation that's been around for a long time. And I love that they're going after the younger fans. And when you look at who the age of the drivers, they're all pretty young, you know,
Yeah.
40,
Yeah.
44 might be the oldest, or
Right.
and so 44, gosh, my kids are that age. I got a daughter
Yeah.
that age. So, you know, that part of it, but we can't forget, you're right. We cannot
Certainly.
forget the people that have gotten us to where we are.
Right. It's a balance. And I think, industry to industry, it's very specific, right? Like age plays a large factor, especially from a professional driving perspective. You see kids starting karting at 4 and 5. So if
Yeah.
you're not professional by 17, then you've aged out, So I think that there's a lot of misnomers that can be addressed. And I think that there's a lot of just misconceptions that people might come in with premeditated ideas of how it is, and it's not necessarily the right perception. So it's certainly a line, but I think that companies are becoming more aware of that. I think the question of next gen is very prominent right now, but certainly it's a line and a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I interviewed a gal not long ago, and she didn't start racing till she was like 14.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, yeah, I got started really late.
I know. I've heard
And I'm
that.
like, we don't, that sounds ridiculous, really, when you say it, but it's true.
Right.
It really is true. And then there's girls that are 6 years old that have raced a year or two.
Absolutely.
And it's just amazing to me. And I love telling stories. That's what I do. And I love all ages. I interview one lady said to me, "Oh, I'm an old lady." and I love telling all the stories, but the little ones, the young ones, you just never know what they're going to say. And they're so like, until they get to be about 12, and then they worry about what they say.
Sure.
But under the 6, 7, 8-year-old girls, they just tell you how it is. And I absolutely love interviewing those little girls.
That's
so fun.
So good.
It is good. So, you kind of took a different path to get to where you are. What's been the biggest challenge for you in this position?
In this current position?
Yeah, or maybe even, getting there. What were some of the challenges that you overcame?
Sure. So prior to my role with Hagerty, I was director of operations at Road Atlanta. And I think that role came with a lot of challenges in facing being a woman in the space. And I'm not necessarily experiencing that much as much now with Hagerty. I have a really good leader. My boss is a woman, and there's a lot of respect and support there. Not that there wasn't at Road Atlanta, but it was certainly a different dynamic. I think being in that forward-facing role with Road Atlanta and being the decision maker in some rooms, it was often that I was the only woman in that room. And I think that, especially for me, I was a really young age at the time. I think I was 20 or 21 when I became director of operations. And so it was a very intimidating role to step into, and certainly experienced some of that imposter syndrome that I feel like we hear about all the time. But I will say that through those challenges and through the dynamics of learning the confidence in that, I also had amazing mentorship. I had a really, really strong support system. I had leaders who let me fail so that I would be able to grow. I had those that stood up and advocated for me without taking over the conversation, which I think is a really, really important factor. And I've seen a lot of people do that incorrectly. And it ends up damaging, the caliber and the trust that other people would have in me if they took it over. So I would definitely say that combating and learning how to navigate those type of dynamics When I was director of operations, I led a team of around 12 people that were all men and they were all older than me by decades. And so having to experience a leadership style as someone with a very different experience level than they had and a very different expertise level. Again, luckily, that team was a team of rock stars and trusted in me enough to let me try and be willing. But I think that chapter of my life was certainly full of a lot of challenges to explore and ultimately overcome. And then joining Hagerty, of course, came with its own set of new challenges. I now lead a team that is a smaller team. It's people that are closer to my age. It's women. It's a very different dynamic. And I think that there's now being in the broader automotive space as opposed to the regional motorsport, that came with its own nuance and, politics that have to be navigated and just kind of addressed. So yeah, certainly I think it's being willing to take things as they come and adapt and learning that adaptability and not necessarily getting stuck on the small things, which I'm often guilty of, has really been some of the challenges that I've worked through.
Well, it had to be difficult. I was sitting here listening to you say you were 21, maybe at the oldest, and the guys that you were overseeing were 2-3 times your age.
Yeah, certainly.
And, I just know that, when you see girls racing and they're on the racetrack and they're 15 and the guys they're racing are 2 and 3 times their age, it's not always a pretty situation.
Sure.
And so it had to be probably more difficult for them to kind of accept you in a way until you proved that you had to probably go in and prove, hey, I'm capable, I'm smart, I can do this role with your help. Right. And that probably took some negotiating and some, donuts and coffee.
Yeah, I think, prior to becoming director of operations, I had been with Road Atlanta for a couple of years and I had worked through a few other positions. So during my time there, I started in hospitality. I ended up doing sales. I ended up doing a few marketing tasks. I managed the entire track calendar and rental process. I was doing contracting. And so I do believe that coming into the director role, I was well equipped to have understanding and strengths in that. And luckily, the entire team that ended up being the team that reported up to me saw that. They were able to see that example. And my mentor was my predecessor as the director role. And so to be able to have someone and work with them as their right hand, essentially, despite being in different roles, I think was really, really impactful. And as I mentioned, it was certainly challenging. And I'm sure there were potentially some egos that were impacted in that. But I'm so, so blessed to have had the work team that I did have, the support system in the office that I did have. And those that when I felt that imposter syndrome, they were there to remind me, but we see the ability and you wouldn't have been given this opportunity and you wouldn't have gotten the role ultimately had someone not thought of you as prepared. So I think I was willing to learn. I think that was received. And I also believe that a good leader is good at leading people who are experts in their own respective fields. Mm-hmm. And so while I came in and they had 2 decades of experience and I didn't, I also leaned very heavily on the team. And I think it was a mutually successful and beneficial dynamic for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like it for sure. And the fact that you'd been there, they knew if they had worked with you, but most of them probably had worked with you in one way or the other.
Right.
You're not a newcomer stepping in and they don't know anything about you. And
absolutely. So, yeah. I was blessed to have had like a good relationship already.
Yeah. And that's, wow, that couldn't go any better than that. And having somebody that you feel like has your back if something does go awry. The person that was over you or your mentor, it's always good to know, excuse me, that you have somebody in your corner.
100%.
And it gives you a little more confidence.
Absolutely. And there were times he let me fail, let me tell you, but it ultimately was for my betterment. And I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. it's like being a parent. You can't bail your kid out of everything. You have to let them try to figure it out, and
Certainly.
or you're enabling them through their whole life, and that's not good for anybody. So
That's right.
it's a little bit like that when
Right.
you're the boss and you got people under you. You're kind of the mom figure, even if you're way younger than them, for sure.
Right.
So what's on the schedule for Hagerty? What exciting things are you sponsoring? Are you involved in? What's 2025 look like for you?
Yeah, I think 2025 is a really big year. We have a lot of partnerships that are in the works right now that aren't quite to the finish line yet, so I'll hold off, but some really, really exciting ones that people can look out for that will be very familiar if you're in the motorsport industry. As of our time of recording this, we did have our official announcement today of supporting Sabre Cook through Shift Up Now. So I am just thrilled selfishly to be supporting her again. We've been partnering with her for the past few years now, and she's such an amazing athlete and an amazing human just at that level. And so I'm really, really eager to see that continue. I think as Hagerty as a whole, we are really excited about just the future, about how we're looking at younger enthusiasts coming in, about how we can provide resources for people that are interested in getting more involved, either on the hobby or the competitive side of the house. So yeah, a lot ahead that we're really, really excited about this year. In just a couple weeks, the Amelia is our owned and operated event, and it's coming up on its 30th anniversary. So we are really, really excited to celebrate that and have some huge activations planned that we cannot wait to share with everyone else.
That's pretty exciting. And it's hard to keep all that under wraps, isn't it? Because you want to tell everybody.
There are a lot of moving pieces always.
For sure. Absolutely. So do you use social media at all in your job, or how does Hagerty embrace social media and use it to their advantage?
That's a great question. So for myself personally, I do not. We have a team of really skilled, educated people on social media platforms. Despite being young, I am not technologically advanced. I do not love social media. I don't understand it. But we have a really, really skilled group of people that are highly engaged, that have grown our social media platforms for Hagerty in huge ways over the past couple of years. I mean, just astronomical shifts. And we have quite a few team members that are leading those initiatives that are just kicking butt, honestly. So yeah, it's been really, really a cool tool for us to use as a company and to get more involved with our community directly.
Yeah. I mean, I see it, but
yeah,
I wanted to hear it from your side of
absolutely.
Of
Yeah, no, our team curates some amazing content that they put out, and it's clearly doing something well in the community because, again, the growth has just been insane.
Well, and it's about getting the name out there. And again, you've got to go to where they are. And that's where we all are. And, really, I mean, that's how I have met probably 95% of the women that I've interviewed. I've done it through, I've either seen them on social media, I've seen somebody talk about them there. I do a lot of research about different companies that are involved, what women work there, what do they do?
Absolutely.
Because it's not just about the drivers. And that's one thing I've tried to, I have people say, well, I'm not a driver. Okay, that's even better because I have a lot of drivers. But I want to talk to people that are involved in the motorsports industry that are not drivers. We need to show young women that there's a lot of opportunity in this field. Yeah. And if you're not the best driver and you don't have millions of dollars behind you and all those things, then there's still an opportunity for you to stay involved. And so that's one of my goals, is to make sure that, they know that.
I would love to expand on that. So through my podcast, the Be Differential podcast, I really emphasize that as well. And I think that I wanted to create the platform to showcase the access and entry points, because I do think there is a misconception that it's just racers or that you have to be an engineer. And while those roles are obviously important, looking at any interest or skill set that you have, whether that is healthcare, whether it's accounting, whether it's legal, all of those skills and roles are necessary in the motorsport ecosystem as well. And so I think it's really important to highlight that you don't have to be a driver and you can still be involved in whatever capacity, whether that's professionally, as a volunteer, as a hobbyist. I think that it is definitely important to showcase those voices and stories because it might not be the sexiest ones that people think of first.
Yeah. And you know, I tell girls, motorsports is a business, just like, you know, Goodyear, or just like the grocery store down the street.
Right.
It's a business. And so they need accountants, and they need a tax person, and they need PR, and they need this, and this, a travel agent, you know, all these different areas. And I always bring up when I talk to girls and they're like, really? I didn't know that. I said, did you know that there's a gal that I interviewed that flies from North Carolina to the races, the NASCAR races? She works for NBC on the side. She's the hair and makeup lady for the people on television. And they're like, what?
Yes.
And just like me, I assumed they did it themselves. You know, I didn't think that there was a lady there doing their hair and all that, but I should have. I should have thought of it, but I didn't. And she was so fun to interview because it was just like
a great example.
Yeah, she opened my eyes to like a position that I would have never thought of. And so we just have to get all that information and educate people and get them to come over to our side of motorsports because we love it. We love it. So we want them to we want everybody to love it. That's the thing. And when people don't understand it, or they say, oh, what's exciting about going around in a circle? Well, there's way more to it than that.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, but NASCAR kind of has that F1, they kind of get the most notoriety, I guess. And so people don't really understand all the other kinds of motorsports that there are.
That's right. And just like we said earlier, that's why visibility is so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, I don't have any other questions. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should?
I mean, we could dive into so many things, Melinda,
I know.
but no, I think this was so great. I'm so honored that we were able to have this conversation and talk about a little bit about what I do and some of the projects and initiatives that I love to support. And I'm really excited to see the growth and evolution of motorsport and its continued diversity and expanding out. I'm really, really excited for the next couple of years ahead, and then obviously on into the future also.
Yeah, I'm with you there 100%. So, well, thank you so much for being on. If you just hold on after we're done recording, we'll finish up and have a great weekend. We're looking towards, let's see, Atlanta, isn't it this weekend?
I don't actually know. I'm all over the place this weekend.
I know you are. I'm sure you are. I believe everybody's kind of in your neck of the woods this week.
Okay, it depends on the series, I suppose. I know SVRA is Sebring this weekend, so
okay. I think NASCAR's in Atlanta, and I try to keep track, but I can't keep track of everybody.
That's fair.
All right, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. We hope you've been inspired by the stories I shared today and feel more connected to the amazing community of women in motorsports. Remember, whether you're behind the wheel, in the pits, or cheering from the stands, your story matters. And together, we're driving change and celebrating every milestone. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who loves motorsports as much as you do. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for updates, behind the scenes content, and more incredible stories. So until next time, stay inspired, stay connected, and keep racing through life. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, where every woman's story is worth celebrating.